in extreme southwest Oregon, not too far from the California border. A gentleman was out to start his car, particularly clear night, he says, and he happened to look up and he saw this object, V-shaped object, and it was blotting out the stars. It had blue lights on it, moving slowly southward, and he saw it for only 6 or 7 seconds, heard no sound, and was quite intrigued by it, so he gave me a sketch. If you go to my website, www.ufosnw.com, and go to the front page, you'll see a sketch that he has, and then you'll see the map of, if you click on Read Report, you'll see the map of where the sighting was, extreme southwest Oregon. So that's one of the more recent cases that I've had. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to call into our toll-free line at 888-919-2355. And if you missed the first hour of the broadcast, podcast will be coming out a couple of days. We interviewed Dr. Bradford Evans, a PhD psychologist, who's done a lot of work for me and been a great help. Also interviewed a gentleman named Mack Maloney. Mack is a journalist, recently authored a book, UFOs in Wartime, and a very good information about UFOs before World War I and through the Gulf War, how they sort of show up in wartime. So looks like we got a question coming in from the chat room, which we'll take here momentarily. And again, if you have any other paranormal events that you'd like to talk about, whether it's a ghost sighting or poltergeist, if you sighted a strange creature, Bigfoot, something, feel free to call in and talk about it and give us your report. Okay, the next question coming in from the chat room. Do you ever get into UFO witness stories from Russia? You know, I don't believe I've ever, I gotta pick my brain. I don't have any specific recollection of any UFO sightings in Russia. I've had a lot of them in foreign countries, Eastern Bloc countries, but none that I can specifically think of from Russia. If you go to my website homepage and click on archives, click on UFO sightings, and then I have a location page where you can go to foreign countries and go down there and see if you find Russia, but I don't believe I've had any specifically from Russia. Now, there have been many cases from Russia. Matter of fact, I was just unpacking some of my videos tonight, and the KGB files, when the Soviet Union fell apart, a lot of the KGB files got rolled out. Looks like we got a couple of callers on here. Charles is on the line. What's your question?
Well, I thought I was going to go ahead and tell you guys a UFO story here.
Well, go ahead. We're all ears.
Okay, my name is Chuck. I'm on the chat room, by the way. I'm UFO Nut. 94.
So are we.
In 94, when I started going on these sightings and investigations, I had 5 young men from a college call me, and they wanted me to go with them to the Great Sand Dunes there in southern Colorado because they heard about a lot of UFOs. So we went down there, got all set up on Friday night, and this gentleman that owns the complex there, it's a private campground, he said we couldn't be there, but he saw my ID and everything, and he said, oh, yeah, you can stay. And he's telling us all these things he's seen and everything. He went to bed. I was standing outside by the fence, and I'm looking down at the road, and one of the other guys come up behind me and kind of startled me a little bit, but we sat there talking, beautiful, clear night, bunch of stars out there. And we were just kind of looking around, and we saw something coming down, moving in the sky all of a sudden it came down, straight down and stopped in front of us in a big field about probably a couple hundred yards away. And then all of a sudden it just right straight into the ground. And we just kind of looked at each other like, what in the world just happened? And it was a sphere of some kind. And he says, look over there. Go ahead.
Where was that, in Colorado? That wasn't in the San Luis Valley, was it?
Yeah, San Luis Valley.
It was.
That's down there where the great sand dunes are.
Yeah, okay. That's quite a hot spot for UFO activity.
Oh, yeah, quite a few. He said, look down the road there, it looks like a car coming. And it's called 16 or 17-mile road from that campground down to Highway 160. We saw a pair of lights coming. And so we were just talking, and those lights kept getting closer, but we couldn't hear a sound. And all of a sudden, they came straight by us. Right below us was a telephone pole, a fence line, and a cattle grate. And when cars hit that cattle grate, it makes a lot of noise.
Right.
Well, when these two lights came by, it just made a sound like this. That's all it was when it went by. And those two lights were still white when they went by us. And we just looked at each other. We didn't have our cameras out. We didn't have anything out. And we said, oh, my goodness. We jumped up and got one of the guys, said, let's get the car. We went straight up that way, and we couldn't find anything. It just blew our minds. And
well, I've had a lot of reports from that valley, and there's a lot of cattle mutilations that have occurred over the years in that valley, too. And most of those, I don't think any of them have ever been explained, from what I understand. So
no, I don't think any of them have. The San Luis Valley, the sheriff was called one night from what's that one in Colorado Springs? Big underground facility for the
Cheyenne Mountain.
Yeah, Cheyenne Mountain. Mm-hmm. They called him and said there was an explosion nearby where he was at. He went out there to check it. They called him about 10 minutes later and says, never mind, we know what it is. You forget about it. You don't know anything. We never called you, and hung up on him.
Well, that's interesting that NORAD would call a sheriff.
yeah, that was very interesting. I've even got the whole. I've got part of the report that the sheriff himself made out on some paperwork. But
I'd like to see that sometime. If you could email me that report, just at my Puckett at UFOSNW.com. I'd like to see that. Well, thanks a lot, Charles. That's interesting. Yeah, that's San Luis Valley, quite a UFO hotspot. We have another person identifying themselves as Project Freedom. Project Freedom, what do you have for us tonight?
Yeah, great to talk to you, William. It's Bobby K. And what I was interested in is what maybe your opinion would be on UFOs and religion. Are they benevolent? What's your opinion on that?
Well, that's a good question. You know, I think that some of the passages in the Bible, and I am by no means an expert on the Bible, but the History Channel has done a lot of work on that. I've worked with the History Channel on some other projects, and you know, some of the stuff in the Bible of the gods and Greek mythology could very well be UFO activity. However, it really, in my mind, and I'm a Christian, I don't think that belief in other civilizations or higher dimensional civilizations conflicts with my religious viewpoint that there is an almighty God, a transcendental or omnipotent, I'm probably not pronouncing it right, being in charge of the universe. So in my viewpoint, it doesn't conflict with my religion. Even Jesus said in the Bible somewhere that in my house there are many mansions. Mm-hmm. I kind of took that to believe that might be many dimensions and many levels of existence of intelligent beings. So, but like was mentioned earlier in the show with my two guests, and I kind of agree that we think that these higher intelligences that we have experienced, and I believe that they've been here, are here, may not necessarily be extraterrestrial intelligences, but other universes and other phenomena that we don't understand. I don't know if I answered your question, but that's my own viewpoint.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you gave me your viewpoint. What I was looking at too was my opinion. There is that in the ancient times, ancient religions and stuff, the evidence is quite loud, actually, that there has been extraterrestrial intervention of some kind. That doesn't worry me as much as the religious modern day attitude, interpretation of the UFOs. Let me bring to the forefront here Heaven's Gate and what happens with people in different situations.
Yeah, I mean,
it's in the interpretation, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the Heaven's Gate cult is kind of an example of, unfortunately it's not associated with the UFO phenomenon, but it's an example of a leader, of a person that can have so much influence over other people. And I guess I didn't.
But it was
totally
a religious organization. Right?
Yeah, it was. I mean, they made
and
it
that's
out
what
to be
I mean.
Religious.
Yeah,
no, that's dangerous. But I think you asked the question about malevolence and benevolence. I have not interviewed very many people or had very many cases where people have been hurt by UFOs. I've had some. I've never had anybody that's been killed in a vicinity of a UFO sighting. So I don't think that if they were malevolent, at least widely malevolent, we would know it. That doesn't mean necessarily that they're benevolent either, because if they were, maybe they would be helping us out with some of the problems we have in society, like wars and environmental degradation and, a number of other problems that we got right now. So I guess maybe they're kind of like hands off. We'll study these people and try not to intervene too much. So,
it's almost like,
Heaven's Gate is, that was a tragedy.
I think with the ETC, it's almost like on Star Trek. It's a prime directive. You can't interfere with the prime directive. If they could have, let's say they would have given us cell phones 100 years ago.
That's right.
They let us run our own course.
Right. Well, I appreciate the call and certainly food for thought and something to consider. Before we hit the next call, we mentioned that Epic Voyages deals with paranormal phenomena in general, and I've been primarily involved with UFO investigations. I've had a few reports over the years of Bigfoot, some other odd creatures. As a matter of fact, Dr. Bradford Evans, who was one of my guests the last hour, did some investigations for me. There was a case down in Oregon of some strange creatures sighted, and some of the debunkers, I use that term, said it was feral wallabies that escaped. Well, there were no wallabies that escaped, and they couldn't survive the climate at that time of the year. So whatever these people saw, they weren't feral wallabies. And here in the Helena area, Helena is a really old town. It's an old mining town. Started around 1865, and of course, seemed like the older the town, the more the paranormal activity. Well, I have relatives here, and one of my relatives says he's got a ghost in his house, and I talked about it with him, and I haven't investigated it yet, but he lives in a condominium. He's only lived there about 3 months, and he said that when I questioned him about it, he said one night he saw this strange light zip across his room, and another night he saw a shadow out of his corner of his eye zip around. And then another night, a lady friend of his was walking down the staircase, and something pushed her, and she came back up the stairs and said, T, I'll use his first name is T. He said, T, why did you push me? And he said, I wasn't anywhere near you. So something's going on in that house, and I guess you'd have to say if something's going to push you down a staircase, you got to say that's malevolent intent. But he said he'd call me if he's had any more activity. I haven't heard from him, but he does have 2 teenage daughters that live with him sometimes. He's apparently separated from his wife, and they said they haven't noticed anything in the house. But again, he's only lived there 3 months. So again, I guess we got a caller on the line. Caller, please tell us what your question is, or if you have a report of a paranormal event. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Let's talk about some more cases on my site, UFOsNorthwest.com. It's www.ufsnw.com. Epic Voyagers website, www.epicvoyagers.com. Recently, we had started out to be an interesting report. New Jersey turned out to be a hoax, and of even police officers allegedly seeing a disc-shaped object and an actual sighting of a being, but that case proved to be a hoax. Well, we do post some of these cases because we want people to know that we investigate everything, and if we find a case that's a hoax, we'll certainly put it out there and show people that, a percentage of these cases can be explained. And recently, this happened on January 14th, Tarpon Springs, Florida. Person, they were driving down the road and they saw these black lines in the sky, and they shot some photos, and the photograph revealed a dark object, and it was a daytime photo. You can see some wispy high clouds, cirrus clouds, and enlargement of the object. If you go to my website, to the homepage, and page down a little bit, you'll see an enlargement and the photo of the object. And you can see that they were moving on the car because the photo was slightly out of focus. And you click on Read Report, and you go down, and Tarpon Springs is not too far from Tampa Bay, a few miles north. So, a lot of the photographs that I get, people will be photographing a friend or maybe a scenic site, a mountain or something, and then they'll look at the photos and find some strange objects in there. Sometimes those objects can be birds or other explainable phenomena, but sometimes they're not, too, and some of the best UFO photos have been taken that way. In this particular case, I'm not really sure what that is. It's certainly not a bird or an insect, looking at the enlargement. Of course, in the newer cameras, the digital cameras, high-density digital cameras, a lot of resolution, and you can zoom in and look at these and find out that there is definitely strange stuff going on. Also, most cameras that will shoot a little bit into the near-infrared, which is not visible to the naked eye, and so some of these objects may indeed not be visible to the naked eye. If you want to run a little test sometime, just take your remote that you run your TV or stereo with and take a look at it and put it up by your camera and press the button. You'll see a little red dot. If you take the camera away and press the button, you won't see the red dot. So that's what I'm talking about. And again, if you have any questions, go to our toll-free number, 888, try to bring that number up here, 888-919-2355. Looks like we got another question here. What are your thoughts of using digital cameras as opposed to analog cameras when filming the sky? Very good question. Most cameras nowadays are digital, and I think digital cameras, particularly single lens reflex cameras that are digital, will do as good a job as analog cameras. and you got an advantage that you can do a what you call a physical zoom, and then also a digital zoom, and you can do the digital zoom on the computer. So I think particularly with single lens reflex cameras that are digital, like a Canon EOS 900, are as effective as analog cameras. And the caller says, I like digital only because I have one, has night vision. Well, that's true. Now with analog cameras, you can get night vision. You can buy infrared film, and which means you can shoot and develop infrared film. But I would agree with the caller that night vision is an advantage. I've got a number of night vision equipment that I use for what we call sky fishing, where you just take cameras out there, put them on tripods, and see what you can catch. I haven't done much of that since I've been back here in Helena, but in the high plains of Montana here, the air is real dry, and we're up close to 4,000 feet. Yeah, that sky's pretty bright at night, so I'm hoping to catch some stuff out there. And I've got night vision equipment similar to used by the military, third generation night vision equipment. Also have some FLIR thermal infrared equipment, and I've never really caught anything unexplainable with any of this equipment. Caught some good bolides, lots of satellites, but I'm hoping that indeed will happen. Again, if you're just joining us, we're taking calls. We're on the Inception Radio Network with the weekly Epic Voyagers broadcasts. You want to call in, toll free, 888-919-2355. You have a ghost story, poltergeist, UFO sighting, Bigfoot, Chupacabra. We're taking the whole gamma of the paranormal spectrum here tonight. And with that, with no callers, I'm going to cover a few more of my sightings on my website, which is www.ufosnw.com. And I recently redesigned my website, but if you want to go to the old archive reports, if you go to the home page, just click on archives up there, and you can bring up the old site and all the historical sightings. Recently, from Ventura, California, a gentleman took some video of some strange red orbs, and this happened during the daytime, about 2:30 in the afternoon, 2:15, Ventura County, California, which is near the Los Angeles area, and he took pictures of several red orbs, which I find to be pretty strange. And he did his own photo enhancements and sent those to me. And you can page down on my home page and find that particular report. And if you click on the read report, you can come down and look at the map. And Ventura County is in the Los Angeles area. That's been a hotbed of activity in Los Angeles, and then off of Catalina Island. We get a lot of reports of UFOs coming out of the water, and one of the best photos I've ever got came from right south of Los Angeles, and that was taken in, I believe, right at the end of March of 2007, and it was a dish-shaped object. A gentleman was out walking one morning it was 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday morning, saw this object flying rapidly south, then it just stopped and hovered. He shot a picture of it, and then it just shot away. And if you go to my home page, if you go to right on the top of the page on my design, those are real photos of UFOs that I've had reports of, and you go to the one to the left, that zoom in, that kind of looks like what this gentleman saw, and very, very interesting report. I believe that was from Redondo Beach, California, which is not very far from Los Angeles International Airport. Well, we're coming to the end of the broadcast, and I've enjoyed being with you tonight. And if you want to report a UFO, you can go to epicvoyagers.com, report UFOs directly to me at ufosnw.com. We'll take and investigate your report, and also videos and photos are welcome. So with that, we'll close from the high plains of Montana, the Helena Valley. This is William Puckett saying good night.
Thank you for being with us tonight. Please join us again next Monday evening for Extraordinary Phenomena Investigations Council's Epic Voyages. I'm Roger Peacock for Epic. Until next time.